Boom, there it is. All right, people, what's going on? What's going on? How you doing? Hello. Looks like we are live everywhere. We're in effect. Thank you so much for being here. My name's Tim Black. Welcome back to the Tim Black Show. And today we got a special treat for you. I'm very excited about presenting this to you because this is a young man who I've been speaking to offline for quite some time now. This guest is a doctor of education and a proprietor of all things education. You'll find his social media accounts. We're going to give you links to all that good stuff. But he's across social media. He's a full-time educator. And very interestingly, on his YouTube channel, he has the quote, "Education is a passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it." Haj Malik El-Shabazz, you may know him as Malcolm X. So he's an education, education from a foundational Black American male educator's perspective. Folks, my friend and now yours, Dr. Musa Abdullah, my brother.
How you doing, everybody?
My brother. Hey, Musa, Dr. Musa, how you doing, man? What's going on?
I'm doing all right, brother. I appreciate you having me, man. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it so much.
Man, thank you for making time out for this. Let me make sure I'm over here, man. Look, guys, this me using this new software, and Dr. Musa's been bearing with me, man. We're trying to get it going for you guys. So, Dr. Musa, just so I can clarify, man, are you in Chicago? What state and city are you in?
No, actually, I reside in New York City, but I have worked in education in New York and in New Jersey. And I'm currently working in education in New Jersey right now.
Absolutely. That'll work, man. Look, man, I'm going to jump right into it. For all the people out there, guys, I got a couple questions to get this going. The topic today is cracking the code, ignoring data that elevates educational outcomes. Doctor, can you give us an overview of what you mean by ignore data in the context of education?
Well, all right. Let me give you a little background. I started out in education in the year 2001, the month of November of 2001 to be exact. And I got into it via the alternative educational system. Now, alternative ed, typically people think of the bad kids, which for the most part, that's what it is. But alternative ed actually comprises gifted and talented, STEM schools, arts, performing arts. But the lane that I actually took were the children that had the most challenges. And what I found is that when we were getting the referrals for children that were special needs, the children that were problematic behaviorally, typically they were the young men, ages fifth grade all the way up until 8th grade. So you're talking about 10 years old, 9 and 10 years old, all the way up till about 14. So I delved into that action, and my principal at the time, he made a deal with the superintendent, and he said, listen, for every girl you want to send us in this program, we'll take 4 young men. And we created a de facto all-male program. And we had such success with the program that, ironically, it was sabotaged by the parents. And I'm going to explain, it wasn't malicious sabotage. They saw how much success we had with their sons that they wanted their daughters to be in the program. It was interesting. An interesting dynamic, and because they had so much call for it, they forced us to have young ladies in the program. It kind of fell apart, but eventually a all-male model school came to our district, one that had been operating in New York City for about, at the time, 6 to 7 years. The district adopted the model. I became one of the founding members of that staff, and I started working with all males, and that's been my passion ever since. So much so that my dissertation topic has been providing equity, the importance of separate educational spaces, and foundational Black American male teachers for foundational Black American male students, grades 6 through 12. And what I found in doing my research, it just really angered me because the research has been there for decades to show us the pathway to allowing young Black boys in particular, giving them the skills necessary to be productive academically, thereby pushing them to be productive in professionally and creating better communities. And the more I read, the more I researched, I just became more and more livid because I kept saying, wait a second, are you trying to tell me we've had this information for decades and we've not acted on it? And people would say, well, yeah, they must have acted on it somewhere. No. Black men, even though it has been proven, my research has shown and been proven that if you have a Black male teacher, just one between the grades of 3 to 5, just 1 year, the graduation rate for Black boys rose 39%.
Whoa.
Now, the thing that really blew my mind was that I said, well, you know, that makes sense. Black male teacher, Black male student, grade's going to go up. But it goes even further. If you have a Black male teacher from the grades 3 to 5, and you're any gender, any race, your graduation rate goes up 18%. So I say, wait a second, hold on, wait a second. Is this really happening? Are we now saying we care more about the status quo than we do about any child? If you say that you have an issue with Black children, we can argue that all day, and we already know why that would be. But now you're going to inhibit all children from learning by not putting forward a concerted recruitment effort for Black males in the classroom. Because right now, Black men, we only comprise less than 2% of all educators in the country. So when I say that this data has been hidden, it's not been utilized, not just for the Black community, but for all people in this country, it's there.
Man, this is astonishing. This is astonishing information, man. Let me get this right. Folks, when because when we hear people say foundational Black, your knee-jerk response is like, okay, I get it. We want to foster, excuse me, we want to foster this idea that, yes, we want to be taught by our people that understand this best, that we can better relate to. But what you're saying is that, this is not just a feel-good thing for students. This is actually going to impact the outcomes in their educational success. Like there's hard data that says your child is going to do better throughout school if this is what type of a teacher, or if they have this type of exposure from a teacher.
Yes. And what the thing about it is that Black men in education typically, and this was interesting from a social perspective, typically the Black male teacher is the most popular in the building. The Black male teacher is the most sought after for social emotional learning. And, if we were the monsters that we're painted out to be, that data couldn't even exist.
Hey, Doc, I don't mean to interrupt you, man. This is going to be some riveting conversation. I'm going to need you to slide a little bit. I got to center you up. I'm sorry, we got to do this live, brother. Okay. Yeah, man, you off the screen and you dropping bombs, and I'm thinking people going to want to hear this. Yeah. Like this is going to stand the test of time, brother. I want us to loosen up. I got to loosen up, brother. I haven't had an interview in a couple months, man. Let me loosen up, brother. All right. Because what you putting down here is so significant. Folks, are y'all listening to what the doctor's saying here? I know I'm going back over it. Brother, you trying to tell me not only does it help Black kids, it helps all kids to have what is this phenomenon? Can you put any thought behind where this comes from? Why is this the case?
Well, bottom line is that if you begin to put forward let's just go back. Yeah. I believe, and this is my personal assertion, just from being a Black male in education, working alongside Black males, my first principals, assistant principals, supervisors, they were all Black men in education. And I was very fortunate to have that experience. So I didn't know what it meant to not see Black men in educational leadership. I didn't know. Now you got to understand, I'm coming from a background prior to that. My first Black male educator wasn't until college. And that in itself was amazing to me, because you're talking about literally 13, 14 years of education, which I had never experienced a Black man in the classroom leading the classroom. The Black men as far as I was concerned, Black men in educational spaces were the coaches, custodians,
Right.
Sometimes the security, lunch aides, or cafeteria workers. I had never seen a teacher. I didn't know what that felt like. So when I went away to school and I transferred to a second university, Western Michigan University, shout out to the Broncos in Michigan, we actually had black male professors in the what was called at the time the Black American Studies Department. All we only had 5 black male professors in the whole entire university. Now, mind you, you got to put that in context. Western Michigan University is the third largest university in Michigan under Michigan State and U of M in Ann Arbor. And so we're talking about I had only 3 black male professors in the Black American Studies department and 1 black male professor in the social work department who ended up later on becoming my mentor for my master's. But we all galvanized a movement at the university to make Black American Studies a major. It is now the African Studies major at the university, but that was because the majority of us had never had a black male educator. And we rallied behind these brothers to create this major just to learn more about our history, to have a place of safety in the classroom, because that was the only place where we knew for a fact that we were being our grades were being judged purely by the content and the presentation, not by our skin color, not by our city, our zip code. We were just students and we were just so happy. So it got me to thinking, maybe I didn't do so well in high school or middle school or elementary because I did not have that influence. And
Wow.
that's where my travels and my trek began. So this data has been there, and all children are losing out. It's blowing my mind because we as black men in education, you can say what you want, but we are the secret sauce
Wow.
to success in the educational space. The data is showing it.
The data is showing it. Folks, it has me rethinking, Doctor. It has me rethinking so many situations. Thinking about my own education. I'm thinking about the education of my oldest son, my youngest son, my daughter. Now I got grandkids.
Yeah.
Wow, just to consider this, and this. Can you name some places where this is published? I mean, how readily available is the data? How is it just out there? Like, what did you do to find it? Did you have to hire a private investigator? Like, where is this? I never heard this, brother. In fact, I watched the Abbott Elementary episode.
Mhm.
My wife loves it. Right, 2
Yeah.
weeks ago.
I know
2
exactly what
weeks
you're
ago.
about to talk about. I know which one you're talking about too.
There it is. So I forget his name. The young brother from Everybody Hates Chris.
Yes. And
And
everyone just wanted to be in his classroom. They just wanted to hang out with him. And brother, let me tell you something. I'm going to give you some personal. A lot of this is anecdotal, but a lot of it is data. But to start this off, Jawanza Kunjufu spoke of this in the 80s when he wrote the text countering the conspiracy to destroy black boys. That was one of the major sources that I went to. So I said, well, I know I'm going to have a hard time, brother. All you have to do is put black male teachers in Google. Just put that in Google. And I'm telling you, you're going to get a litany of information. And I'm saying, and these are not just opinion pieces. I'm talking about peer-reviewed scholarly sources. We're talking from Harvard down to the local community colleges. This is not new. This is not cutting edge. They know it. It's just that it goes against the narrative of the big scary black man if you now are telling them, hey, these guys are great in the classroom. And everyone knows that in order to be anything, you got to go through a teacher. So we always say, as teachers, we teach all other professions. And that's just a fact.
That is just a fact. I can think of times where I'm getting some feedback there it stopped. I can think of times on the job, brother, when I was a team leader, and one of these jobs, there was a number of groups, number of teams, and I was one of the team leaders. And I was one of the very few black team leaders there.
Yeah.
And now I think about it, I may have been the only black male team leader. And it was something about our team, brother, that everybody wanted to join our team. And it became a problem. Like, they were like, Tim, what are you doing? What are you saying to these people? Why they want to leave other teams? People be getting taken in a certain kind of way. And I didn't know what I was doing different. I just knew I was in my early 20s. Maybe it was the energy level. I never considered maybe there's a dynamic at play out. I'm a young man, I wasn't considering that. But now I'm thinking back in time of teachers that I had and the impact that they had on my life and how man, is it subconscious? Do the students, what's going on with the students? Are the students exhibiting something, or students, is it grades? Is it attitude, behavioral? What areas do we see improvement?
Well, we see improvement typically, well, first of all, you got to understand something. When you have a black male educator in front of you, they have to be extremely intentional about the outcomes that they want to receive from the student. Because for the most part, the student's going to gravitate towards you just because you're the black man in the building. And if you're talking about dealing in urban education, and if you're talking about in the black community in particular, now we do recognize facts. I don't deny facts, whether they speak for me or against me. A fact is a fact. The data shows that black children in our current circumstance are born 80% out of wedlock. But that does not mean that their fathers are not present in their lives. People assume that because they're born out of wedlock, the father is not present. But I will say this: having the father directly in the home has drastic differential outcomes. So when you have children whose father is not in the home, now they have great relationships with their father. I have students that fathers come pick them up from school every day, get them on the weekends, have them over the breaks, but they're not in the home. I represent that father because I am literally with them 8 to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. So they're looking at me. I'm the father, I'm the uncle. And in my age now, I'm the grandfather, as they say. They call me Pop, so I get all of that. But I'm very intentional of my expectations. And what I've learned is that children do not remember the educators that let them slide. They don't remember them. They remember the educator that held their feet to the fire and told them, no, you're going to be great, hook or crook. You got two options. This is my favorite one. I've been utilizing this for about 15 years. You got two options: be successful or be successful. Which one you choose? And they're like, you only gave me one choice. No, I gave you two choices: be successful or be successful. And I said, so either you're going to be successful, you're going to hate me for it, or you're going to be successful, you're going to love me for it. Either way, you're going to be successful while you're under my watch. And the children love that. And I was the disciplinarian for a school in New Jersey. I transitioned to another position of director of student services. But when I was disciplinarian, now mind you, the disciplinarian is supposed to be the position that the kids hate. Yeah. Because I have the power of suspension. I'm meeting with parents. I got everyone's contact information. I'm calling parents. I'm having detentions. I'm doing it all. The principal told me, she said, you're the most loved person in the building and you're supposed to be the most hated. I love it. And you need that support, because in a previous position where I had that position, the principal was angry because the parents deferred to me and not to her as an administrator. And so, like you experienced, there is a lot of times a lot of jealousy, a lot of resentment, because you can get things done just by being in the room that other people can't get done after lectures, parent conferences, detentions. They can't get it done. And so it does affect them academically when you require them to do more, but also put resources in front of them to get those things done.
Amazing information. Startling information. Gosh. How does this ignored data specifically impact students? Can you share any specific examples, case studies where this data has been used to achieve significant educational success in your experience?
Sure. For example, it says right here, according to Aboke, I'm sorry, I always get this name right. I had to do this presentation for my doctoral defense. Iboquet in 2022 states that FBA male educators acknowledge that race, ethnicity, class, and culture impact how Black boys are perceived by society, and some educators come to internalize those negative perceptions, contributing to low expectations in classrooms and schools. Some educators recognize that Black boys' low self-esteem is partly due to schools ignoring their racial and cultural identities. They encourage students to choose culturally responsive books and other learning materials, and they integrate Black history, Black authors, and Black people's achievements into the curriculum. That's something that has been shown that statistically occurs when you have a Black male teacher. We typically infuse those things into our lesson plans to give, because we know as Black men the need for high self-esteem, because people are always pounding on you. And this is just men in general.
Yeah.
Men in general experience this. Black men more so because we have the racial stigma, but Black men typically do that. So we have that as a study. I mean, it's just so much. It says here, for example, in the month of June, studies stated that Black students are nearly 4 times as likely to be suspended as white students, and nearly twice as likely to be expelled. In the month of September, Black preschoolers, now mind you, these are preschoolers, are 3.6 times more likely to receive out of school suspensions. Suspending preschoolers 3.6 times more than their white counterparts. This study was done in 2016. So we're talking about a study that's almost 10 years old. So this is what we're dealing with in education. And I have now begun to move out of my comfort zone, and I'm looking around at my my Black students, Latino peers, their white peers, and I'm saying, you guys are getting screwed over too. You know, I love children. You know, I love my own, but I love children, period, you know?
Absolutely. Yes.
And I'm saying you are doing the country a disservice by not putting forth a concerted effort to put Black men in the classroom, and by not infusing the things that you see. Let's say you say, well, I don't want Black men in the room. Okay. You can at least implore and enlist the strategies that Black men overwhelmingly engage to bring our students to the forefront of positive education.
You know, it kind of spits in the face of this whole idea of color blindness, you know, where I think people think they mean well, you know, that's maybe it's coming from, they like to quote Dr. King on this, but it sounds like, brother, that you can't run from the elephant in the room, like who a person is, if you ignore that that's a Black child, a Black boy in this instance, in front of you, then you're basically dehumanizing them, because their Blackness is part of who they are as a person. And we know you can't take race out of everything, so it's going to be basically to the default, which is white.
Right.
So that's sort of how things fall. But does that make sense? Am I on the right track there with that?
Oh, you're definitely on the right track. I've always taken umbrage with the color of their content of their character, not the color of their skin. What Dr. King was speaking of was ideologically. That's ideological. That's not realistic. Because if you deny someone, if you say, I'm colorblind, I don't see color, what you're saying is essentially, when you're saying this specifically to Black Americans, is that I do not see the most significant identifier of you as a person, your community, your culture. I don't see that. I just see a person. And when you start talking about color blindness, you start talking about discounting individuals, which makes it so much more easy to subjugate, to disenfranchise. Because now you're saying to yourself, well, I won't be able to provide these services. It's not because of their color, it's because it's not in the budget. Not going to provide these materials. It's not because of their color, it's because I didn't put the Rex in on time. I believe in approaching everything from a sense of urgency. I walk in, I get to school, when I get to work in the morning, I'm there earlier than everyone else. And for the most part, I leave later than everyone else. And I'm on my feet. I'm running hardcore with my students. Why? Because they need to see that their education is approached from a sense of urgency. So talking about, oh, we don't see color. I actually did a broadcast on that. I said, Black students do not need teachers who say that they don't see color. They don't need the colorblind teacher. They need teachers, as a matter of fact, to swing the pendulum to the other side. They need teachers to say, no, I see you. I know what's going on. You're Black. I'm not. And there's a great book. I actually have it in my background by Christopher Emdin. Matter of fact, let me pull it down real quick.
Sure.
Book right here. This in this grade is for white folks who teach in the hood and the rest of y'all too. When I tell you, this brother, he does not spare any feelings. He gets directly to it, and he approaches from a holistic perspective. He says, listen, if you're going to work with Black children, you need to learn them as Black children, not just children, because that's easy for you to do, but it's very hard for them to palate.
Black children need Black teachers. You know, we have this running conversation in the hood. You know this about, was it better when we had segregation, when we were segregated? Did we lose something, brother? Oh,
let me tell you.
Yeah.
Let me say this, and this is not an opinion. This is a fact. Literacy rates were at 10 to 15% before the Emancipation Proclamation. During Reconstruction, our literacy rates rose to 80%. You got to understand something. We were teaching ourselves. We're talking about one-room schoolhouses, dilapidated floorboards, no desks, no smart boards, no internet, just old textbooks that we could get a hold of. And our literacy rates rose to 80%. We're talking about Reconstruction right after slavery.
Wow.
So if you're talking about our literacy rates now in certain, I don't want to be as political as I need to be,
right.
In mostly Democrat run cities, you're talking about literacy rates in the 50s and 60s. And let's just call it what it is. The majority of educators in the nation now are white women. So the likelihood of you having a white woman as an educator, K through 12, is exponentially higher than you have in any other gender or ethnicity or race.
Absolutely.
And you're talking about our literacy rates are at 60% sometimes, 50% sometimes, depending upon the city. When once going back to the original stat, 80% literacy rates, and during Reconstruction, and you're talking about one-room schoolhouses being taught by people who were not credentialed, who had not studied education. They just knew how to read, and they felt that, once again, as I said, the sense of urgency for the people in their community to learn as well.
You know, as you break down this information, Doc, it seems like it should not be considered groundbreaking. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it's something about the stigma of being Black. It's something about the Blackness, because if we were talking about any other group of people, if you said, Tim, you know, studies show that, I don't know, Mexican kids benefit from having Mexican male teachers. I wouldn't be shocked to be like, they're Mexican. They understand each other. They share their dialect. They know the inside jokes. They know the cultural differences. They relate to them. They see themselves. It would be nothing. But there is a stigma on Black men specifically, where even I, who I'm an advocate for Black folks, I'm like, what, for real? We really are that important to Black boys? Of course we are. It's
Yeah.
like the most, you understand what I'm saying? I feel a tinge of shame from being surprised at all. It should be a given.
Yeah. Yeah. I find it very interesting that whenever you talk about equity and you talk about now I have my positions on DEI as an entire policy, but when you talk about providing equity in schools, I don't mean giving people um things that they haven't earned. I don't believe in that. I believe in giving them the tools to create the things that they want to earn.
Break that down. What are things they don't earn? Be specific.
Okay, so for right now, because everyone is scrambling for money. Now, this has been going on for decades now, but the lawmakers make the rules for the school. We're talking about people that have never taught. They're making rules for teachers. They're telling them the standards that need to be taught in order for children to learn properly. That was Common Core. They said, we're going to make it across the board. Everybody's learning the same thing. You're going to teach it this way, never considering culture, never considering not even just the racial dynamic. They're never even considered what part of the country they lived in, family dynamics. Nothing was considered. Hey, we want them to learn these things and we want to teach them this way. So I'm talking about everyone's scrambling for a dollar. So you know what's happening? People are passing students that literally cannot read. I'm talking students that are going across those graduation stages, being accepted into colleges, and they cannot read. And I'm saying this, I literally left a position that I held dear. I helped build this school, but I had to tell the administrator, I will not be complicit in the failure of children. I will not. And I took another position. I left. I had to stand on principle with that. And I was so upset because it was a wonderful young man who was great personality. He wanted to learn. He was struggling though. And he would tell me every time I try to tell the teacher to slow down, they won't. And they would tell me, I've got to get through this lesson. I'm being evaluated. And you're talking about young people who want to learn being told, no, we'll catch you on the next one. High school educators have the luxury of blaming middle schoolers. Middle school educators have the luxury of blaming elementary school educators. But who do the elementary school educators have to blame? The parents. So, you're passing the buck. No one's accepting that we are all in this. And if you knew that a child came to you in the 6th grade and could not read, it should have been code red for that child. You should never have allowed that child to move forward if you knew without a shadow of a doubt that child did not have the skills to do so.
Wow. And I agree. We've all heard about the phenomenon, passing them along, just sending them through the system. Doc, I'm hearing this little chirp, chirp, chirp in the background.
Oh, they're doing work outside of my home.
Oh, okay.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, cool.
Outside the house. Yeah.
Good, man. I was like, man, did I do something wrong?
No.
This is new.
It's me.
New software.
All right.
So you don't believe in that. If you stood on business and you left a school you helped found, that you helped like get going?
I was one of the founding staff members of social support, and not to mention, our school was founded upon a cohort model. This particular school I was a part of, they broke students up into what they call houses. Each house was named after a influential Black male. I was the founder of the Shabazz House. We had the Ali House for Muhammad Ali, the Roberto Clemente House, and the Nelson Mandela House. And because of my enthusiasm, the house grew. We went from initially 5 or 6 young men. Then our 6th grade class, we had about 12 to 13 young men. Now we have young men that are out in the workforce, graduated with degrees, They say, yeah, I was a part of Shabazz house. So I was with these young men from the ages of 11 all the way to 18 because it was a 6 through 12 school. I just went to the graduation of 5 of my young men that I had since they were 11 years old. One of them, of which became a member of my fraternity because I told him he would be. When I first met him, he was 11. I'm gonna give him a shout out. His name is Johnny Carter. Just graduated from King University with a communications degree, and he is going forward. He has a biz. He created a business now. He's doing well. Quadir Sauls, Zachary, Roger. I mean, so many brothers that I was instrumental in their development, but I had to leave that position because we had a new administrator to come in. And if I'm being honest, he was more tied to the system than he were to the children. And I would love to just jump on him, but he's not an anomaly. He's the norm. The anomaly are the educators that say, I'm going to bump heads with this assistant superintendent or this superintendent, or sometimes the mayor or the governor to say, no, my children need to learn. And that's why it's been a strong push for homeschooling and independent schooling within the Black community in particular.
Charter schools. What kind of schools are these? Academies? Are these? Doesn't sound like typical public school systems, are they?
Well, that's the thing. When people say charter, they think that it has its separate funding source and it's so outside of the realm of possibility. What charter schools truly are just schools that skip the line. They don't have to go through a superintendent, an assistant superintendent, all of these different as I say, um, stops along the way to the funding. You're getting your money directly from the state. So you are aligning yourself with the state criteria for education, but you're not bound by the local district's criteria. So you get, for example, my youngest son, he belongs to a charter school, which is culturally centered, and it's in New York. And we chose this school. It's considered a public school, but it's a public charter school. Charter schools are different only in that way. And because they are dealing directly with the state, they can create extracurricular activities that other schools do not have. They can have different partnerships that other schools don't have that will be district, what they call district schooling. So independent schools, on the other hand, are sometimes funded by the community. Uh, they may receive grants or funding from the state, but they're not bound by straight state criteria as far as the curriculum is concerned. So independent schoolings are great. Charter schools are great. Homeschooling is the most ideal. The
Really?
only problem with homeschooling is that you got to have somebody there to do it.
Yeah.
And with our economy, and we can get into that at any point in time, because of our economy, you need 2 to sometimes 3 incomes in a home
Yeah.
just to stay afloat. So the homeschooling option is being taken off of the table, in particular for the Black community, because we're working. We're putting in double shifts sometimes of both parents are working, and sometimes an elder child's working just to sustain the home.
Yeah, absolutely. Financial constraints, definitely impact us the most, just due to being Black. The tax, what we call the Black tax.
Black tax, yes, sir.
That's a fact. Yeah, we can definitely get into that. I had a guest on a couple weeks ago, like a month ago too, and we got into she talked a lot about charter schools, and we kind of got into that conversation, and it was a little out of my depth. I know that there's some controversy surrounding it, but I'd like to come back to the charter school topic. What are some of the biggest, but before that, what are some of the biggest challenges in getting the data recognized and utilized in schools? So it's there, it's there, you're aware of it, you act accordingly. Why can't we get this out to the masses? What's it going to take, you think?
It's going to take a mass exodus of us in our community in particular from public education as a whole.
Wow.
Right now, I'm seeing what I have never seen in the last, I want to say 4 to 5 years in particular, I'm seeing something that I was saying should have been done 10 years ago. Our staff should be going out and recruiting children. But in order to recruit children, you got to offer them something that they've never been offered before. You got to offer enrichment programs. You got to offer extracurricular activities outside of just your traditional sports. Even if you do sports, you got to offer non-traditional. We're talking lacrosse, rugby, sports like that. If you are in the southern area, southwest, equestrian clubs, there certain schools do have equestrian, which horseback and stuff like that. When you start talking about a lot of these schools now, which I find to be amazing, they're now incorporating community colleges. So students are now graduating with high school diplomas and associate's degrees,
Nice.
right. It's amazing. You're talking about cutting costs. You're talking about trades in the school. It was taking out of our community. They need to be offering all the trades, cosmetology. We're talking about lucrative fields
Right.
that should be pushed into the schools and taught at an early age. And I'm not talking about just high school. These things should be introduced at the elementary school level, put into practice in the middle school level, and in full swing by high school.
Wow. I got so many questions. We're already a quarter to. I don't know if I want to keep going here or what do we kind of dig in here. I do want to get to the charter schools. What's the next steps in your research or initiatives to promote the use of the data in education? What are some of the next steps for you? What are you going to do?
Well, I'm going to be honest. Right now, what I'm looking to do is I'm looking to open one campus, single gender school for girls and for boys on the same campus, because I do believe that as far as extracurricular activities, enrichment, they could commingle. But in the classroom in particular, in your typical average everyday run-of-the-mill school day, they should be separate, because the data has shown that gender-based education, in particular for boys, increases graduation rates by 30 to 40%. So when you talk about why aren't there all male schools, there are all male schools, but typically they're private. And you're talking in New York City, they're all male private schools in the city of New York that are upwards to $20,000 to $30,000 a year. And we're talking high school. We know that the data is there. There should be all male components offered throughout every major city. Luckily, New York City does have an all male component offered to its residents. It's called Eagle Academy for Young Men. And ironically, that's what I helped to found in New Jersey. I was one of the founding staff members of Eagle Academy for Young Men of Newark, New Jersey. But now we have Eagle Academy for young men of Brooklyn, Ocean Hill. We're talking about Queens, Staten Island, the Bronx, and Harlem. They do all have their own Eagle Academies, and the success rates are phenomenal. But I do believe that all major cities should have an all-male school and an all-female school that is very intentional. So what I'm trying to do is create something like that in my hometown. I'm looking right now at properties and trying to get on board with some fellow educators of like mind, to create an institution, because that's what makes a community, institutions. So that's what I'm utilizing my studies and my data for.
The data that you shared, the numbers that you shared are pretty, it's an indictment really to the system and an indictment to what's currently available in the form of information. I mean, you just said, folks, Dr. Musa just said 39% improvement rates for Black children that have Black male teachers. And then you said another 39% improvement rate if you go to a single gender school or academy. That's that puts you as so ahead of others. That's setting your child up for success in a way that um, everyone should know about this. Like this is just who wouldn't want those odds? Those odds are so much better than the alternative.
Yeah. I'd like to say something to the audience. If you have children, if you are a stakeholder,
Yeah,
if you have nieces, nephews, you got a kid down the block that you're invested in, you have got to be intentional in what you want for that child. And what I mean by that is you've got to be up on the latest laws, policies. You need to know the principle. You need to know what that school, how it's run. It's going to take a little bit of sacrifice. I tell parents sometimes you're going to have to maybe go into work a little later,
yeah,
leave a little early, pop up at your children's school. Tell the parent, tell the principal, I want to walk through. I want to know what's going on. I want to peek in on my child in class. I want to know what the curriculum is. What's the latest cutting edge technology that you're using? You got to be intentional, because if you are just saying, hey, that's their job, I'm going to send them away to school, I'll pick them up at the end of the school day, I'll ask them how their day was, did you do your homework, and then send them to bed, you've just given your child license to learn at the pace, at the rate, and to the way that they feel they need to learn. Because sometimes, and this is a sad fact, if you ask children this question, have they ever heard a teacher say, I got mine, it's time for you to get yours? I have yet to meet a student who said, I've never heard that.
wow,
And there is a level of lethargy,
yeah,
uh, uh, apathy when
right.
it comes to education on the part of educators. And I say they gotta go. They got to
They
go.
gotta go,
They
brother.
gotta go. And you need people. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm in my early 50s.
Same here.
And I tell people I shouldn't be working. I shouldn't be working. I'm gonna tell you why I say that. I should merely be mentoring
Mm,
the next generation of educators.
wow,
I
wow,
shouldn't be in the classroom. I shouldn't be in the hallways. I shouldn't be in the lunchrooms. I, I tell people what I'm doing, the way I do it, it's a young man's job,
mm,
you know. But I have to keep forward. I have to push forward. I got to keep on this road, because as many people say, no one's coming to save us.
wow.
We got to save ourselves.
Excellent point. Excellent point. When you say that hit home for me, man, when you say you have to be intentional, I'll go a step further and say there are some of us who think they're sticking up for their kids when we're concerned about things like, are you mistreating my child? Are you saying things to them that's disrespectful? Do I got to come down there and get in somebody's ass, so to speak, about the treatment of my child? I want to make sure my child is respected. But we
That's
need
right.
to take it up a notch, according to Dr. Musa here. We need to be more concerned. Also, be concerned with that, of course, but also be concerned about what they're teaching your child, about the curriculum your child's receiving, about the attention they're receiving. Are they being pushed ahead, or is the focus really about the academics?
Yeah. I actually I've went as far as an educator. And I'll never forget this. I had a forum that I had to attend. It was in South New Jersey. And it was this was probably a defining moment for me in education.
Yeah,
It was a black male assistant superintendent. He got up in front of everyone. We're talking about this, maybe about 200 people. And he said, raise your hand if you're following the rules at your school. So, people of course say, what do you mean by following the rules? You're doing what needs to be done. You're doing what's being told to you to do by your assistant superintendent, your superintendent, and ultimately the state. Most people raise their hands. I didn't raise my hand because I'm an honest guy. I'm like, I know I'm breaking rules. And he says something that was so profound. After everybody put their hands down, he said, if you raise your hand and you told me that you're following the rules, I can guarantee you work at a failing school, because the rules are not set up for children to succeed.
wow.
And this was coming from an educator. And It did not dawn on me until he said that education in its current state is not designed for students to succeed. And my mentor said to me all the time, he said, as an educator, do you really want them to know a lot? Do you really want them to know a lot? I said, of course I do. He said, I know you really do. He said, but from a systemic perspective, you don't want them to know too much or you'll be rendered obsolete. So you got to understand that there is a level of survival that educators and the people in prominent positions in educations hold when they make policies, when they create
What?
curriculum.
Hold
Yeah.
on, hold on, hold on, Doc. What are you saying here, brother? What they hold back the data, they hold back the information, the better, the more challenging or the more sophisticated. What are you saying here?
Um, Education is a microcosm of the general is of the population of the United States. Right now, we see that, and as far as I'm concerned, the middle class no longer exists. Right
Right.
now, the middle class in education no longer exists when it comes to the money. I'm going to explain what that means. If you have a failing school, mind you, the state will give you more resources. If you have a school that's doing extremely well, the state will give you more resources. But if you have a school that's in the middle, just they're not doing well in certain areas, but doing well in other areas, they get nothing. Their budget is not expanded. They don't receive grants. They don't receive bonuses. They don't. So guess what? Your creme de la creme educators, they're clamoring to get into these um, performing schools. And you know who's being put in the lower performing schools? The teachers that are on their way out, who have been evaluated as less than effective. It blows my mind that you're going to put a teacher that has been rated below effective in a school where the children have the most need. And brother, when I tell you that is not just my anecdotal experience, that's just the way it is in education.
No quality control over the teachers.
No. And I always say this, there are things that happen in education that could never happen in any other field. Do you know that there are districts that will not pay teachers to go back to school? They won't give them tuition reimbursement. There are districts, and this is interesting as well. There are districts that will penalize you. And I say penalize you because if you pay for the doctorate, you pay for the master's, they will not even give you a pay raise, even though you're bringing more skill, more knowledge to your job. Tell me another field where you can study that field, become more knowledgeable, and not be rewarded. I always use one field in particular. The things that occur in education could never happen in the aviation field.
Mm,
You would never have a pilot who could not pass his exams
mm. Right,
be responsible for the most expensive fleet plane in the fleet.
right.
It just wouldn't happen. But we have a phenomenon in education, and I want to lead. I want parents, and I'm doing a lot of talking, brother, because I just want a lot of people to know what I know,
Right.
not what I believe, not what I think, what I know. We have a phenomenon in education called failing upwards, and let me explain what that is. You have a teacher, maybe want to be a good teacher, may or may not. Maybe he got into the field because he wants summers off, wants to get off at 3. Who knows? This teacher will be piss poor. But if they've been in it long enough, they're tenured. It takes a lot to get a tenured instructor out of the district. But you know what they do? They say, you know what? Let's promote them. They'll become a teacher coach. And because he was a horrible teacher, you can't be a good teacher coach. So you know what they'll do? They'll promote him to vice principal, assistant principal. Then this same person, because hell, they've been assistant principal, they may be good with the books. And because these guys know that they should not have a position, they're not going to buck the system. They become principal. These principals, now they've been around for a while. The people that they taught with are beneath them and at different schools. They become assistant superintendents. They become superintendents. So you got someone who shouldn't even have been in the classroom now controlling the livelihood of those who actually do deserve it, and effectively controlling the future of thousands of children. And this is not uncommon, sir.
Horrific, horrific, brother. I don't know a better way to put it. That sounds like it sounds like many other institutions, though. It does sound that way, but even more morbid is the fact that they are shaping young minds. They are impacting these children's lives. And brother Musa,
Yes, sir.
what are your thoughts, man, on the? We touched on it a little bit. Charter school or no charter school? Public schools, they say one of the arguments is if you put money into charter schools, it takes money out of the public education schools. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, see, the thing about it is that's spoken out of context when people say that.
Okay.
It takes money away from the local district, but it's all still public education. It's still funded by the state because the districts get their money from the state. The state gets its money from the federal government. Whereas the charter schools, they don't go through a district, they go straight to the state. So those dollars that would go to that local district, those dollars are taken out of the pot because it costs on average about $24,000 a year per child to educate. So if you took 4 children away from my district, you've effectively taken $100,000 out of my local school budget. But it doesn't just go away. It literally goes to the charter school to fund the education for that same child that left the district school to go to the charter school.
Okay, so the money just is now diverted to the charter school.
Yes. Yes. So now I do believe that if it's a charter school that has a record of success, true success, because now that's a whole nother discussion right there. A lot of these charter schools that have been open in particularly urban areas, we're talking Chicago, New York, New Jersey, a lot of them are opened by business people. They're not educators, they're business people. And they just want to make a dollar. And they're making big money. And a lot of them close because their focus is not truly in education. It's making money via education. So I do believe that there needs to be consistent oversight over charter schools, consistent oversight. But as far as banning charter schools, I am a proponent for positive education in all of its forms.
What about we got this election that's going on? I wanted to ask you this, and putting aside who you feel is going to be a better whatever your voting inclination is. Aside from that, how does it impact your vote as far as how do you feel about whoever Biden's in the office, his administration, his policies? How do they compare to the Trump policy? Because you've been teaching during both administrations. That's one of the rare things about this election is we've had a test drive of both these guys.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes you're going into the beyond and someone you can just talk a good game, but we're seeing them do their job. So how did it differ under Trump and then under Biden?
Let me tell you, and this is not from some opinion. This is from someone who's experienced it, and I'm currently experiencing it. Under the Trump administration, dollars were divvied out as they always typically have been. The system is the system. But I'm going to tell you, under this Biden administration, we are stretched thin. And when I say stretched thin, because of the migrant crisis, we are now forced to educate these children. So you're talking about when we were already at about a 21-to-1 ratio. That's class size, 21 students to one. We're now bursting at the seams. We have classes that are 35 to one. I literally walked into an ESL class, English as a second language class. I thought this is how packed this room was. I assumed that maybe the other ESL teacher was absent and they collapsed the classes. And I said, oh, and I asked about the other teachers. They said, no, they're in their room. I said, these are all of your students? When did we get all these kids? And because it was an influx in this particular month, I think it was February. It was in February. We got an influx of about 15 to 20 children in our school alone. And because they were ESL students, they could only go to the ESL classrooms. That put a strain on that teacher because guess what? The budget is already set. They didn't have money set aside to hire another ESL teacher. Provided that the budget is increased, they will be able to hire another ESL teacher. But if not, you're looking at about 30 to 35 students in a class to one teacher, maybe one teacher's aide. So I'm seeing that schools are being utilized as shelters. After school programs have been cut because of the strain on the city's budget. I'm seeing that enrichment programs are being cut. It's taking a toll on the food pantries, which in my population students, a large number of my students, their parents benefited from the food pantries. Now the food pantries are that not only do they not have enough resources for my students to give them what they need now, their budget's being cut for next year. And that's all during this administration. Now, I can't tell you what I had under Trump, but I can tell you what I don't have under Biden.
That's very interesting, and I'm not hearing that. I'm not hearing that type of that point of view, that narrative, right? Frankly, or that ground on that what's going on the ground from other news sources. Now, maybe I haven't been paying attention. You know better than I do. Have you heard that reported in mainstream media?
Not at all. Every now and again, you get an article in the Post when there's an outcry from parents saying that, no, you're not gonna put those kids in my school. So I'm now, once that comes on my radar, I'm researching it now. I literally live about a mile away from school called South Shore, and South Shore is one of our larger schools, one of our larger high schools.
Right.
And we had a large amount of rain out here in New York. They moved all of those migrants into that school and made the students go remote for the day.
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was right down the street. That was one that was reported, but there were so many instances of that happening where children were forced to go remote to house migrants, which, I've heard people call it the Biden crisis, which I would say is aptly entitled. Because of the Biden crisis, you have children that are forced to go back to a model that we know for a fact does not work, which is virtual learning at a secondary level. It does not work. And you're forcing children to go back to that, all to accommodate the migrants. So no, we don't hear about it. We just feel it. We don't need to hear about it here because we understand, we know what exactly is happening in the community.
Well, I could say, brother, I appreciate your candid communication on these issues. And you definitely putting it out there, brother, letting people know what's going on. How can people find out more about your channel, about what you got going on, Dr. Musa?
Well, you can follow me on my YouTube channel. It is All Things Education Official. Once again, that's All Things Education Official. You can follow me on Instagram, All Things Education Official, on LinkedIn under Dr. Musa Abdullah. And you can also follow me on TikTok as the All Things Educator.
Before you go, man, let's see if we got any questions. I I didn't mean to leave my people out, man. We got a crowd in here. Anybody got questions for the good doctor? Any questions for Doc in here? A lot of comments, man. Let me see start comment. Okay, we got a new member to join. Thank you once again, new member. I got a lot of thumbs up happening. A lot of statements. Let me pick a statement because
Right.
it's a little delay when you're live. Let's see. Let me scroll down here, brother. I hear an awesome, good comments. Let me just put this up on here. Awesome. Here goes a good comment. Some kitty says politicians should not be making decisions for professions and life critical disciplines.
Some kiddo, thank you so much for that. We have been fighting that fight literally since I've been in education. You're talking 20 plus years. And I've talked to veteran educators back then who said they've been fighting it since they were in their 20s. And they're saying, why are you making decisions for what we have to do and you have no knowledge of it? They say those who can teach, those who can't, make the rules for teachers.
Gosh. That's a horrible statement, brother. That's a horrible, horrible statement to have to make.
Yeah.
It is true, right?
It's absolutely true. And I've had conversations with governors via, when we go down to the state capitol and make our usual annual plea for more resources. But right now in the state of New York, they are now trying to remove Eric Adams as the end all be all, because in New York City, a lot of people don't know this, he appoints our chancellor for schools. And he has no experience in education. How does he know who's a good chancellor? He doesn't. So what he ultimately ends up doing is taking recommendations.
Right.
In this particular case, the chancellor of our school district in New York City is his longtime friend, David Banks. Now, this is very interesting as well. David Banks is actually the founder of the Eagle Academy for Young Men. So he knows the data intimately, because he not only is a founder of the school, he is the first principal of the first Eagle Academy for Young Men of the Bronx. And for him not to push gender-based education throughout the city, it burns me up. And I don't even like to even converse on it, but I can't wrap my mind around this man who is a doctor. He's a doctor of jurisprudence. He's a lawyer. He has a PhD. He is an educator. He knows what we need, but it's the status quo. You're talking very well-paid positions, and a lot of people just don't want to rock the boat.
Well, Doc, man, I appreciate you coming on, brother. I think that I think it's been very beneficial for my audience and the new people that came through, people that just saw the thing, the option pop up, saw the invitation. So, Doc, man, I'd love to have you come back, man. Whenever there's an educational topic that's floating around, that's going on, brother. I know you're busy. You got them young minds, man. In fact, look, Dr. Musa was like, I'll be in the house in 15 minutes, probably out doing something related to the job on a Saturday.
It's interesting that you said I was actually with a group of young men outside. So I actually was. So I had to hurry up and get in. I looked, they said, Mr. Abdullah, aren't you supposed to be somewhere? Because I kept telling, I got to be somewhere at 2 o'clock. I got to be somewhere at 2 o'clock. So yeah, that does happen. So, but yes, I would say I would love to come back. I appreciate you. I appreciate your channel. I've been learning from your channel for years now, and it was good to be able to educate on your channel.
Man, it's great to get this. Thank you for your persistence, because Doctor reached out to me like a year ago, and we've been like back and forth talking, man. I'll say, man, I want to say this, man. Thank you for your service. We say that to military people. We should be saying that to teachers, especially teachers with your point of view, my brother.
Well, thank you, sir. And listen, if you ever need have any questions, comments, concern, please feel free to email me at Dr. Abdullah, Dr. Abdullah at allthingseducationofficial.com. Sometimes you have a question, and if I can answer the question, I'm very responsive. I'm very engaging. You got a question, you may, hey, this is going on at my son and my daughter's school. What do you think about that? And I'll give you my honest position on it. Feel free.
Man, what more could you ask for, folks? That's it. Thank you for joining us. I'll see you on the next one. Don't forget, I'm going to put a link to the doctor's page on YouTube. And from there, you can find all his other social media. Take advantage of the information. This is the real stuff. You don't get it anywhere else. I love y'all. And remember, don't let nobody take your cornbread. We out of here. My brother.